Hello everyone, this is update for October 22, 2022, day 241 of the war and of the date update. So today, as a heads up, there is not much going on the front line. There was incorrect of false information from the Russian sources, which is essentially a Russian propaganda machine, that Russian side launched large-scale offensive on North Lugansk front line. That information is false. However, there is sort of no smoke without fire. So there are actually changes there, and I'll keep intrigue once we get there. But there are some changes there, not in Ukrainian sort of favor. And now let's switch to strategic situation, what's going on in the world. As everybody is seeing now very clearly, there are two opposing blocs are being formed, loosely call it West, which is like Canada, US, European Union, with some outliers such as Hungary on NATO, and again, then outlier is Turkey, and then Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, probably New Zealand. That's another, not that's one group. Sorry, West, and then there is group that's Russia, Iran, and China. That's another group, right, being formed. This is not this. All of these blocks are not final as well. Hopefully not, but if and as situation deteriorate, more countries will sort of join one group or another, and many of them will probably doing it based on who wins, and from that perspective. But anyway, so there's two blocks being formed. Then in China, so you'll probably know the Communist Party finished election of the Central Committee, which is the ruling mechanism of the Communist Party. The Xi Jinping got re-elected again, as I was sort of alluding yesterday. So basically, war group won and the trade group lost basically. And what this really means is that he got um, support, or the Chinese bureaucratic elite voted in support of the confrontation, in this case with the US. More, and I guess in more specifically, probably also includes Japan, South Korea, probably Australia to what extent, I'm not sure. Uh, and so this is very similar situation to how it was in Russia before invasion of Ukraine, because Russian President Vladimir Putin was re-elected, I believe, in December of 2020. Right, once he got re-elected, he got, well, it's not correct way to say re-elected, but basically re-elected. I would say re-elected by the Russian bureaucratic elite, because people in Russia don't vote, and at the same time they do. There is sort of silent sort of majority that really supports everything, right? So, but still, even they support, they sort of disenfranchise. They're not allowed to, so because to participate, because the top is really scared. What if they will do something wrong? So basically, there is no trust to the general population. But basically, going back, what happened is once he got sort of reconfirmation, yes, you can go ahead and let's say invade Ukraine. We re-elect you on this basis. Then he started preparation. So it was December 2020, I think, and then the sort of initial move started in April 2021. Most people forgot, but the first sort of like threatening move was in 2021. The US got involved and managed to push it for for almost a year, like, or 10 months, right, till February of 2022. So something probably similar is going to happen in China, as that he got the Xi Jinping got reaffirmed, he got approval. Yeah, go ahead, and we need to take over Taiwan, right? So that there is definitely that. And so there, how quickly it's going to happen, nobody knows, but it's not far away. It's not like what's being told in the Western media. It's like what, 2025 or 26 or anything like that. It's there's not small probability it's going to happen this year or beginning of the next year. Let's put this way. And let's say as we go a little bit more out in time, let's say beginning of next year, the probability goes quite a bit, and I'm not sure if it's exponentially goes up, but significantly goes up. Look, and towards the end of the 23, it probably gonna be certain situation, but there is very high probability it's gonna happen way before end of 2023. Nobody knows for sure. So just give you a little bit small details about like how tense situation is. The deputy prime minister of Poland was going to fly to South Korea, where he was supposed to have negotiations with Minister of Defense in South Korea, and because Poland is buying tons of military equipment from South Korea, like a lot, I think close to 1,000 tanks, like about 500 or 300 multiple rocket launching system. Then also a lot of self-propelled howitzers, those equivalents of basically the crabs, but Poland doesn't have enough manufacturing capacity to make them. So they basically outright they seeing this whole world is spinning into disaster, and they like, okay, we're not gonna sit and wait. We're just gonna buy a lot of those self-propelled howitzers to complement our manufacturing facility, which are lacking, right? So that's why he was flying there. So what China did, China basically blocked him from flying through Chinese air, and he couldn't reach. I mean, he could have done it, but there was some deadline, and so it was clear he couldn't make deadline. So they met online and all that stuff. But it tells you that situation is really tense, and we don't even, just majority of sort of people like, or who live like day to day, don't care about sort of many things. They don't even realize on how close we are to something that's not just war in Ukraine. Let's put this way. To give you a little bit more sort of information on sort of this, I would say, collision, and I wouldn't say it's slow motion, maybe fast motion collision, incoming collision. Like for example, 1,400 U.S. scientists. So basically, what this means is they are U.S. citizens, but they ethnic Chinese. So those scientists, 1,400, they moved to China, and this is from U.S. Research institutions. So as you can imagine, this is tremendous loss of brain power and transfer of technology, knowledge, and everything, know-how to China, right? So it's in a way, like U.S. Educated them for sort of like, well, it's not for free because you pay in the U.S. For education, but from a perspective of like national perspective, there's definitely huge loss, and this number is up 21.7% year on year. So I simply believe this is numbers for probably some cumulative numbers since the beginning of this year. So it's up 21.7, and as you can imagine, people, and this people are insiders, right? They know, they understand very well what's going on in China, and because they are in science, so it's close to the elites, to the ruling class. So they see sort of behind doors what's going on, and they realize that they need to make decision because something is coming, and some of them making decision to stay in the US, some of them, those who sort of want to be on the other side, they moving to China. So this is, as you can see, this is not only happening, it was semiconductors, it's sort of like this separate and general economy, it's happening even like in on the level of human lives, right? Because I mentioned that the global economy basically disintegrating in front of our eyes, and that's a reason for high inflation. Well, there are many other reasons, but this is big, um, really big driver. And so, just to explain what's happening in a very simple way, think about this. You can Before we had like one, call it unified world, so you can pick any resource you want at the lowest price because you all world is at your disposal. Right now we starting to build the walls, right? And because there are walls, you cannot get the cheapest resource. You may have to use pretty expensive resource because it's critical in whatever you're making. And that's where this whole inflate, well, not that's not the only source, but that's one of the biggest drivers. And that's a driver that's nearly impossible to deal with the monetary policy, which I mean by that, by increasing interest rates, because it's just simply, if it costs you a lot of money to produce steel in, I don't know where, in Germany, for example, it's not going to change. You increase the interest rates, it's still going to be expensive, and it's actually will make things potentially. Actually, this is actually another thought that increasing this interest rates, and I'm not saying that they should be like at zero or anything, but it's significantly increasing them may actually create even more inflation, which is very counterintuitive idea because if you think about this, a lot of this resource companies in natural resources or producing some kind of like a very like basic goods such as steel and like aluminum and all that stuff, they all very heavily leveraged for the most part because of the um, zero interest rates were essentially close to zero. So they all leveraged, and so if you increase interest rates extremely high, a lot of them can simply stop and go bankrupt, and that will decrease output even further, right? So this potentially at some point, this increase in interest rates may simply backfire and make things even worse. And it's like you need to you're trying to sort of like saw off one hand, and then you're going to need to saw off two hands basically as a result of all of this. um, but going back to this increasing, sorry, I just sidetracked a little bit. Going back to this increasing tension. So there is also, like, for example, the European Union is saying, like, okay, we're going to cut our ties with China and reduce our dependence on natural resources from China. This probably means mostly rare earth um, metals that's being used in semiconductor manufacturing, and China is biggest supplier of those, and probably because it's the cheapest source of those. And so, and also the reduced dependency on technology. This is all going back to this idea that the global world is being dismantled, right? So this will lead to much higher inflation in Europe, and U.S. is going to go through a similar situation in the whole Western world. But then there are rifts within this, like within European Union. If you really think, like Hungary really is opposing to all of this. They saying no, we need we need to keep relationship with China. And in general, it's actually very interesting to observe that as this whole situation develops, it looks like Hungary is really eventually going to make a choice of the, let's say, of the side of Russia, China, and Iran. But we'll see where it all goes. But it's very clear that sort of philosophically or like mindset wise, uh, they closer to that group of the countries as opposed to the like West. And I'm not saying that West is perfect. It's actually kind of like in many ways lost its way because it's deviated from its own origins, which were its strengths, and because you deviate from it, you become extremely weak, right? So that's a part of the problem. Then also similar sort of risks are developing even like in Germany. So if you know, for those who don't know, the German Chancellor, which is I think call it Prime Minister, we probably right way to say it, not in German way, but like sort of in a way that everybody understands what it is. So he is basically confronting the rest of his sort of cabinet, where there is a Chinese shipping company, Costco, which is big. You've probably seen their containers. They want to buy terminal in Hamburg port, or I don't know how much, like basically, or like some terminal one or two or whatever they want to buy. Basically, they basically want to gain control of the Hamburg port, from my understanding. So everybody in Germany is saying like, okay, no, don't do that, don't sell. At the same time, Olaf Scholz is pushing like we need to find some kind of compromise and sell something to Chinese basically. So again, you can see that even though it's very clear that sort of forces are moving in one direction, some sort of people at individual level, they still don't quite understand where it's all going. So, for example, I think German company Carl Zeiss, which is producer of all sort of optics, which is very important in the war, is decided to build a manufacturing facility and research facility in China. So basically investing in China again. It's very myopic move, but some people just let's say don't understand that the things are very serious, and they just driven purely by greed, which is counterproductive for them as well, because they will lose all of that investment as a result of all of this. So it's not like they're gonna make money. They basically lose it eventually, and that's just going to be write-off. So okay, so we spoke about this situation with European Union. Then Turkey is sort of unclear and sort of more sort of levitating towards the Russia, Iran, and China. That Turkey doesn't look like it wants fully to join that group, but it sort of wants to basically benefit from this whole situation economically, right? So they just want to just kind of like be on the sidelines and gain economic benefits from all of this, which is, I would say, from that perspective, like if you were in charge of Turkey or Turkish, that's very reasonable strategy, let's put it this way. Then there's what else is going on? And then there was U.S. I think he's admiral, or I think basically he's head of all naval U.S. forces. His name is Michael Gilday. So he basically came out and spoke and said that like this invasion of Taiwan probably will happen by the end of this year or beginning of the 2023. So as you can see, and this is probably we're seeing tip of the iceberg. Basically, not all of the information is being sort of provided to every sort of our sort of understanding, but it's very clear that things, even judging from that U.S. move to limit semiconductor transfer of technology to China, is essentially a desperation move to stop Chinese development, which definitely will set back China for many years. There is no question about that. Now let's talk a little bit about the situation. I spoke a little bit about political situation in the U.S. when I said that the Republican leader of the lower chamber, or future Republican leader, because U.S. is expected to have midterm elections, and most likely Republican Party will win and will have majority. Not clear in both or just one chamber, but very, there's good chance in both chambers, because there is inflation, there is dissatisfaction, so it's always kind of flips to the other side, basically, right? So basically the future head of lower chamber said, okay, we're not, essentially, kind of, we're going to cut off, or basically he's saying, like, we're not going to support Ukraine. Now the future head of Republican majority in the Senate, which is upper chamber, came out and said that, like, okay, no, we're gonna support Ukraine, and we're gonna increase supply and so on. So again, I just want to say that there's people get upset. I got a lot of criticisms, but it's in saying, like, oh, you're just repeating, like, propaganda, or what the mass media says. But it's very clear there is rift within um, Republican Party. There is no question about it. I'm not taking side which one right or wrong, but it's just factual information. I'm sure there could be rift in Democratic Party, but right now we very clearly, black and white, we're seeing that rift in the Republican Party. I'm not saying good or bad. It is what it is. That's all I'm trying to say. So. Then there is another sort of kind of like on confrontational side news, is first US sent portion of the 101st Airborne Division, which is effectively light infantry in the US Army, to Romania. And that's it consists, I think, of 3 brigades or something, or 4 brigades. So there is the second brigade was sent. It's about 4,700 soldiers to Romania. So it's the 101st brigade, division, have not been to Europe since the end of World War II, if I understand. So this kind of tells you that things are getting sort of very tense. There is also reports that Polish army is, being accumulated on the border with Belarus and Kaliningrad region, which is Russia. So the situation really getting tense. And then the former director of CIA, David Petraeus, openly said that U.S. may join the war on Ukrainian territory against Russia as a part of multinational armed force. So as you can see, the rhetoric is going up, and it's very clear that things are deteriorating, let's put it this way, in the sense that they're going in, that we may see another level of new higher level of confrontation, not just in Ukraine, let's put this way. And if you take all of this together, there is no sort of even like bright spot to say, oh, but then we have this that maybe will lead to more sort of easier resolution to the problem. It seems like the problems are let's say not resolvable in a peaceful way. That's where the problem is. Then I want to touch on another group of countries, which is ASEAN. I think it's Association of Southeast Asian nations. That includes countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. I think I probably Myanmar. Probably forgot one or two. That is kind of like a distant part of the world that all of the countries I don't remember. Oh, I think no, Philippines. I said right. Malaysia and Singapore. So essentially, that group of the countries is being forced to make decision which side they want to be, and some of the countries, for example, Thailand and Vietnam and I think Laos, they decided to sort of stay on the sidelines. They're the one they basically kind of indicating we don't want to participate on the other side. And the reason I'm saying it is because there's the European Union together with ASEAN preparing paper condemning Russian aggression and potential aggression of China in Taiwan. And these three countries are sort of saying, okay, we're not going to sort of vote in support of it, right? And to extent is probably understandable because they are neighbors of China and they understand that you know it's dangerous, right? If you don't have any reasons to sort of anger China and have potential problems down the road, you kind of want to stay away out of it. And it's also a sign that it's not clear for many countries who's going to win in this confrontation, right? So it looks like for some, for many countries, and also they don't feel like there is something in it for them as well, right? So they're trying to sort of kind of stay away and potentially, like Turkey, profit from all of this potential disaster that may happen. Then let's actually switch. Sorry for this, is kind of like long conversation, but I think the situation is really tense. That I think many people don't realize how bad it is. Let's put it this way. And then now let's switch to Ukraine. And first, I want to provide update on the energy infrastructure situation, Russian attacks on energy infrastructure. So it was there were intense Russian attacks. It was day of intense because for the past it started, I believe, it on the 10th and 11th. There were 2 days of really like large attacks with a lot of targets being hit, and then it was kind of quiet up until 22nd. So it was what about 11 days of the quiet. Well, there were attacks, but they were not intense. Let's put it this way. So today was intense day. A lot of the focus of Russian, and let's actually look at this. The focus. Just look at this black one. This is from Russian propaganda source. So Ukraine is not presented correctly, but doesn't let's just get useful information out of it. So we only need this black circle with the fire. This is where basically it was kind of like a little bit vast and then also kind of like the central and southern part country, and the targets were almost exclusively those transformer stations, substations, right? So because as I said before, they connect system, the producers, they connect producers into one energy supply, energy distribution system. So this is what Russia specifically targets, because before, especially first 2 days, there were also attacks on the production facilities. But what turns out is that actually, in a way, there is no problem with the production because Ukrainian energy production facilities were working only at 54% before the attack, right? So Ukraine was able to increase, since the start of the attacks, increase production of electricity. Because as I said before, the industry is dead, so your consumption, which is large user of consumer of electricity, it's dead. So you don't need to use. And consumers, like ordinary people, they not really the biggest consumer. So as a result, you have a lot of like extra capacity. And as I said, the production facilities were only used at 54%. So even though some production facilities were affected to extent, you could still, but it's not like to the level of like that 54%, right? So you still have spare capacity, and you can even increase production of electricity. So what the Russian side realized that, and they refocused their attacks exclusively on this distribution network, right? These transformers. That's what they're hitting because that you don't have sort of spare capacity, right? It's just you just have exactly as you need, and if they go down, that's it. You have some band-aids you can do, but they don't. Especially in the winter, as I said, those band-aids can blow up phenomenally. So this is what's being done. So there was quite a bit of damage again today to the distribution network. Uh, it has not disintegrated yet into islands, as I said before. If this continues, it's just a question of time, and it will continue as it's very clear. So the system will disintegrate. It's just I'm not insider when within in Ukrainian energy distribution system, and so it's hard to I cannot say exact timing, but who knows? Maybe within a month, it's gonna get sort of dark there. Uh, okay, that's all on this energy, war with energy the system. Let's now switch to the actual front line. Finally, we're gonna start from the north and go down in a clockwise fashion. So the main sort of what's happening along the state border is that Ukrainian side shooting at Russian energy infrastructure, uh, you know, objects on the Russian side. Again, as I said, it's just a bite of the mosquito for for the elephant. It's just it's not efficient use of resources. Let's put this way. But nevertheless, Ukrainian leadership believes that that propaganda is more important than actual results, and so that these attacks continue. Now let's actually look at North Lugansk front line, because I said that there are changes here and they are not really in favor of Ukraine. So this is how it looked on October 7, when sort of like the highest point of Ukrainian offensive, and where it sort of eventually died off on that day. And then after that, so this is where as how far Ukrainian troops were able to advance. As you can see, they were very close to Kremina. They even have some bridgeheads on this side of the river here. They were blocking the road and all of that stuff, right? So this was October 7th. So because there is very little information from this section of the front, so I sort of was able to get more, and so this is what's happened, right? So as you can see, Russian troops gradually over 15 days, 2 weeks, pushed Ukrainian troops essentially away from almost all of this area between the rivers. So as you can see, Ukraine essentially controls this tiny, basically a bunch of bridgeheads centered around the villages here. Then it still controls this village Terny. Then here, the Russian troops basically like completely on the control the eastern side of the river, and it looks like the Russian troops also managed to even, if not fully control Zarichne and Torske, they essentially there is kind of like fighting going on for those two villages, and they even attempting attacks in the direction of Liman. So basically, as you can see, let's just go back again so you see where like how things were. Is you can see the situation deteriorated tremendously over that period of time. So it's I don't know, it's very unclear because it's not like the Russian side got sort of brand new shiny perfect units here. It's the same units that were extremely worn out, and all they got is a little bit more of the basically almost unprepared conscripts. So remain don't really have the myself puzzled about what's going on here, why this is the way it is, because as you can see, there is also a lot of Ukrainian resources in this area. Not to mention that Ukraine has advantage over the Russian side in terms of certain artillery and rocket systems, right? Obviously, HIMARS is one, but also self-propelled howitzers and long range specifically and precise. That's what Russia doesn't have. They have maybe close to the range, but they don't have precision at all. And the precision is a big deal. And by the way, there is a update in terms of how many crabs, which is this Polish self-propelled howitzer with 152 millimeter gun that's 52 calibers long, which is the best, right? So meaning there's in this class, in the best class, because there is also Panzerhaubitze 2000, which is actually better than Crab. Then there is Caesar in that from France. Then there is Susanna 2 in that group. So basically, there is a bunch of systems that are in that group. But so Ukraine has now 54 crabs. So in total, over since the beginning, Ukraine received 54 crabs. So which again, and plus, I think Ukraine has close to 18 Panzerhaubitze 2000, and I believe like 24, close to 24 Caesars. So basically, it's definitely more than 100 units of extremely long range, extremely capable artillery. So this allows you to basically breach any Russian defenses. And plus, if you add to that mix HIMARS systems, like even you don't even need obviously 100 barrels. You just need like whatever 20, 30 at this whatever you are attacking, plus a couple HIMARS, and you can literally breach any Russian defense at any place where you want. So that's why it's very puzzling what's going on. Um, because as you can see, the result is sort of negative. Let's put it this way. Now let's move. Hold on. Let's move down south. Let's see what's going on the North Donbass section of the front line. Here, things are as a broken record. Wagner mercenaries continuing their attacks in this kind of like the most northern area. Then they attacking Soledar without much success. Then here Bakhmut. So basically, no changes. So trying to advance here south of Bakhmut to basically outflank it and create threat of encirclement. That's the whole point of what's being tried to achieve by them. Then, and also the southern. So far, no success, but as I mentioned many times before, that's kind of like part of the process. They don't have success for some time, and then eventually, once the Ukrainian positions are exhausted, they just break and they advance. So this can happen at any moment. Because to address this and how you can sort of strategically address Wagner mercenaries is actually doing counterattacks, but not like straightforward where they attack, but counterattacks, basically active defense with the goal of like flank attacks and even potentially small scale like encirclements and so on, or threat of encirclements. Because I think the main takeaway from this war is it's extremely difficult to encircle opposite troops. Pretty much never successful that attempt, because all troops are all on wheels, so to say. They're extremely mobile, and unless the sort of top command intentionally doesn't tell like, okay, dig in, stay there, and sort of die as a heroes to slow down the opposite side, the encirclements pretty much never happen at this point. The way it works is just being used as a tool or threat of encirclement to squeeze out opposite side from the good defensive position, and that's how essentially this whole thing works. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on the central Donbass front line. Things here are again as a broken record, except it's just a little bit less intense. Russian troops slowly but surely moving in this Piske salient towards in this northwestern direction, and they also advancing a little bit in more like northern direction. Then they're trying to attack here again to create basically again creating threat of encirclement for Avdiivka, right? Because they want to squeeze Ukrainian troops out of Avdiivka, because the frontal attacks are suicidal, will cost a lot of lives essentially there. Now let's quickly check the Zaporizhya front line. Things here are dead as always. No changes here. Now let's finally move to Kherson bridgehead, and there are no Ukrainian attacks. There were no Ukrainian attacks, but there are attacks by HIMARS systems against those ferries, pontoon bridges, and they apparently creating quite a bit of painful losses for the Russian side. Uh, so I just want to explain. So for some reason, I'm not sure even why, those HIMARS systems were kind of like off, probably somewhere else, and they were not really busy attacking or disrupting Russian logistics here for some time. And then now past couple 3 4 5 days, they being again active. And so what's been going on is obviously Russian command, Russian administration are encouraging the collaborators or people who sort of see their future with Russia to evacuate to Russia. They even give them 100,000 rubles and shelter certificate. Not clear what that really means. Shelter certificate, does it mean to like some kind of certificate that you can buy, basically, some house or apartment somewhere else? But people do take that as opportunity, because if you are in this whole war zone and you cannot get to Ukrainian side, or even if you get to Ukrainian side, it's essentially dark and cold there, and you can go to Russian side, and there is money, and there is sort of free apartment. I don't know what the quality of those things, I have no idea, but I'm just like on the surface, right? If you don't know either, right? For those who don't see a difference between the both sides, it's kind of like, okay, money decision essentially. I'm not saying that this is like a large scale movement, but there are certainly people who do move to Russia using this as opportunity. The other thing that's also sign that Russian side, I mean, and as I said before, Russian side will lose this bridgehead. It's just a question of time. But the more immediate sign that this might be happening is that there is essentially shortages of gasoline and fuel in general in Kherson, and I'm not even talking this war zone. That's probably, but even in Kherson there are shortages of gasoline, and actually this gas station, the ones that still remain open, and in pharmacies, they actually switching back to Ukrainian currency, which is hryvnia, right? So this is kind of like people voting with their subconsciousness. They feel like this is where it's all going, and they probably have more, how to say, they're insiders, right? They're on the ground, they're seeing what we cannot see, and they see that the tide is turning in another direction, so they just want to switch to the new tide, to be sort of in sync with the new tide. And so that's why, as I said, they're switching to Ukrainian hryvnias, because they're probably expecting Ukrainian troops to liberate this area, if not very soon, but it probably very soon. And they basically not accepting Russian rubles at this point. And again, there are other indications that Russian troops are being moved to the eastern side of the Dnipro River. Again, there's a lot of speculation about potential, blow up of this dam in Novakhovka. I hope there is that this both sides are rational, because if they're rational, it's not in the interest of either side to blow it up. Actually, right? It's from a Russian perspective, it creates good sort of blocking position, so Ukrainian troops will not be able to get to the Russian side. So it essentially allows Russian side to free up a lot of resources and redeploy them, and let's say to North Lugansk or to Zaporizhya, whatever they want to do, right? So that's that part. And then for Ukrainian side, it's also it's a huge damage that it's going to take a long time to repair, and it's a huge economic damage basically. Um, so hopefully, sort of rational thinking will prevail. Not to mention that the human life, the cost of human life there. Otherwise, the situation is sort of status quo. Nothing formally has changed, but as I said, eventually the Russian side will lose this bridgehead. Okay, thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.